Welcome to the session. Today we will be discussing the CBSE NET paper for June 2015, Psychology paper 2. Now this paper 2 is divided with 50 questions. So we will be covering 25 questions in 2 classes for the June 2015 paper. Now let's start with the very first question. Partial reinforcement is considered better than continuous reinforcement because. Now let's first understand what is reinforcement and partial and continuous reinforcement. So reinforcement means strengthening something. So if I strengthen a response again and again, it would be reinforcement. It can be of two types, partial and continuous. For example, if I am continuously praising a child for doing good, that would be a continuous reinforcement rather than a partial reinforcement where once in a while I give the child sweets or chocolates. So that would be a kind of partial reinforcement. Now partial reinforcement is considered better as compared to continuous reinforcement. The only reason being extinction occurs slowly in case of partial reinforcement. The reason being under partial reinforcement you cannot detect the onset of extinction. Okay, so when there is a problem in detecting the onset, then the extinction occurs slowly, and that is the case of partial reinforcement. So the correct answer here would be 4, that is extinction occurs slowly. The next question is, you have a list 1 list 2 question. You have to match the given list or the given test with the dimension and the traits that they measure. Now the first is known as EPPS, that is Edwards Personality Preference Schedule. Now this schedule was meant to measure nearly 225 items, and the main concept was achievement motivation. The main trait that was focused was achievement motivation. The next is EPQR, that is Eysenck Personality Questionnaire Revised. So propounded by Eysenck and was given in a revised format. It followed 3 basic aspects. First was extroversion, introversion, neuroticism, psychoticism, and finally the Lie scale. So the correct match for the EPQR or revised would be psychoticism. NEOPIR, that is Personality Inventory Revised. NEO, that is the new personality inventory that was propounded, talks about the big 5 traits, and the most important trait here was openness to experience, and we remember these traits as ocean. The next is STAY, that is State Trait Anxiety Inventory. Now from the name itself we can say it measures anxiety, and it measures 2 types of anxiety. First is the state anxiety and the trait anxiety. So the correct option here would be state anxiety, that is 1. So EPS matches with 3. So you have 3 in 2 choices. So if you know even one, you can remove the 2 choices, and then you can see the Edward personality matches with the psychoticism, that is 2. So the correct answer here is 1. Next question. Which of the following is correctly arranged? Now this was a kind of very simple question based on the chapter of memory and learning. So under memory we divide the short term memory, long term memory, and the iconic memory. The iconic memory we also call it as sensory memory. That sensory memory goes to short term memory, and short term memory finally forms the long term memory. So this is the correct sequence and a very direct and factual question from memory. The next is, now the characteristics of instincts have been asked as per the Freud psychoanalytical theory. Now I have an example that I need to drink water. Now for this what will I do? I will first search a source of water. So my first thing here would be to find out the source. Now my aim is to drink water. Then I would have an impetus or energy to go to the source of water and drink it. And finally my object is to satisfy my thirst. So this would be the correct sequence: source, aim, impetus and object. So you have source, aim, impetus and object, that is B, D, A and C. So B, D, A and C would be the correct option here. Next question. Now this is a very interesting question. First of all, there is a misprint with this question. The name here should be Whistler rather than Wister. That's the first thing we must note. Now we must have a tentative duration of research for each of the following. So we know that Spearman researched around 1920s, he gave the concept of intelligence. Wechsler's intelligence concept lies upon around 1940s. Then you have Cattell's concept around 1960s. And Binet and Seaman worked from 1850s to 1920 around. So I can say 1900s. Okay. And Whistler was somewhat during the 1850s. Okay, 1700 to 1800, I could say a broad duration for that. Contemporary to Galton. So now the correct sequence should be Spearman, then Whistler, and then Cattell. Now can I find this sequence anywhere? Since I cannot find this sequence anywhere, here Cattell, who is in 1960s, comes before this, so this is incorrect. Now Cattell comes in the starting before Binet and Seaman, that is again incorrect. Here Cattell comes before Spearman, that is again incorrect because Cattell was around 1960s. So the only option left is 3, and in 3 there has been misprint with the first name, that shouldn't be Wister, rather Whistler, who worked on intelligence and whose work was later on taken by Cattell in his further researches. Okay. So the correct answer here would be 3. Next question. Bartlett described memory as. Now Bartlett gave the term of serial reproduction. What does this mean? According to Bartlett, what an individual does is serial reproduction. So whatever I see or hear, after a short duration, I try to, I have seen something or heard something, I have been given a short duration of time, and after that I am trying to reproduce the same event that I have heard or I have seen. That is known as serial reproduction. Now serial reproduction or reproductive mental process would be the correct answer here. Follows some distortions. So when you are trying to reproduce something after a given period of time, you cannot exactly replicate what you have seen or what you have heard, and that error is known as distortion. So the correct answer for Bartlett's study would be serial reproduction or reproductive mental process, and there is distortion associated with this process. The next is deterioration coefficient was first used in which intelligence test. Now deterioration coefficient was given by Whistler, first used in Whistler adult inventory. This is the correct answer, but let's understand what is DQ. Deterioration coefficient says that intelligence decrease with aging. So as a person grows old, his intelligence level decreases. Now Whistler talked about two concepts. One was crystallized intelligence and one was fluid intelligence. Crystallized intelligence he referred to as hold test and don't hold test. Now based on this, he gave a formula for DQ, which was hold test scores minus don't hold test scores divided by hold test scores into 100. So that was his formula to calculate the deterioration coefficient or DQ given by Wechsler. So the correct answer here is 4th. Now this question is a very interesting question because there is lot of information that has been given and a lot of students have got confused about what the question exactly wants to ask here. Now the question says, according to Hull-Spence theory, anxiety is emotionally based drive and therefore it can be hypothesized as high anxious subjects would be faster on eyelid conditioning than low anxious subjects. Now first let's understand what is eyelid conditioning. So similar to the conditioning experiment that Pavlov did, there was an eyelid conditioning experiment which shows when there is a puff that is blown on the eye blinks and you hear a sound. So that was the kind of conditioning that was explained by eyelid conditioning. So when the puff blows into the eye, you hear a sound. Even if the puff won't blow, you would blink the eye and you will hear the sound. So he explained that people who have high anxiety have faster eyelid conditioning. So he tried to establish a relationship between two things. One was the level of anxiety and the other was conditioning. With higher anxiety, there was faster eyelid conditioning. Now, based on this Taylor Manifest Anxiety Scale, a researcher confirmed this hypothesis. So this hypothesis was confirmed by the MAS scale, that is the Manifest Anxiety Scale. Now, which of the following is a correct evidence? Now, if I say convergent and discriminant validity is correct, that means construct validity should be correct. But in this case, I can say convergent validity is correct because the two two factors are converging, higher anxiety with faster eyelid conditioning, but there is no kind of discrimination shown between the factors or the variables. So this is incorrect. So this cannot be the option. Since A cannot be the option, D cannot be the option. Now we are left with validity of Hull-Spence theory that holds true because by applying mass, I am trying to prove that this Hull-Spence theory, the hypothesis that has been formed is valid. People with high anxiety have faster eyelid conditioning. So that is a correct statement. Then is generalizability of mass. This would be incorrect because I am not generalizing anxiety to something else. This scale measures anxiety and here I am talking again about high anxious and low anxious people only. So I am not generalizing this concept, so this stands incorrect. So the answer would be only B. That would be the correct choice here. The next question. The best home environment for intellectual development is. Now here the correct answer would be the very obvious answer, that is first. If the child is encouraged to work out the problems with guidance and support from the parents, he would try to develop his intelligence level, or intellectual development would be best in this case. So the correct answer would be first. The rest of all do not make a sense for intellectual development. The next is, according to interference theory, which one of the following causes forgetting? Now forgetting occurs due to interference, and this interference is due to failure to retrieve information, which would be the consequence that you are unable to retrieve some information, and that is due to the competition created by the newly saved information or newly acquired information. If it is there, it would create a competition with the existing information, and that would be one of the major cause for interference theory. So response competition would be the obviously correct answer. This was first proved by Melton and Irwin. Later on, Underwood did another experiment and he tried to establish the fact that response competition is not the only cause behind interference theory. Rather, it is also failure to discriminate or differentiate the task. So if I am unable to differentiate two tasks, that would also lead to interference theory. So the correct answer here would be 4. The next question is, the evidence that sleep is a biological motive comes from dash in lengthy sleep deprived subjects. Now let's first understand what is rebound of REM. So when there is lengthening or deepening of the sleep, okay, what would happen is under rebound, the length and the depth of REM sleep would increase, and this would particularly happen in sleep deprived people. Okay, so you would have more lengther and more deeper phases of REM sleep. You would have sudden instances of REM sleep coming up, which would be like for few minutes or less duration, but would be more intense in nature. So the correct answer here would be rebound effect of REM sleep, which is a biological motive and usually found in lengthy sleep deprived subjects. The next is on a Wechsler's type intelligence score. Now as we can see, there are lots and lots of questions on intelligence this time. Now again we are talking about the deviation IQ and T-score. Now let's first understand the difference between the two. Deviation IQ considers mean is equal to 100 and standard deviation of 15. So if I say the deviation IQ is 115, that means my Z score would be, mean is 100 and this is 15 towards the positive side, so it becomes 115 here, okay, and that is one standard deviation, or I can say Z score would be +1 in this case. Now T score is calculated with mean is equal to 50 and standard deviation is equal to 10, and I can say T score is equal to mean plus standard deviation into Z score, that would be equal to 50 into 10 plus 1, that is the Z score. So 50 plus 10 into 1, so that would be 50 plus 10, that would be 60. So the correct answer here would be 60. So this is how we calculate the T score. So T score would be the mean and the standard deviation, that's standard for T score, multiplied by the Z score, and here is how we have calculated the Z score. Since there is mean of 100 and standard deviation of 15, this would be positive 1 standard deviation for 115. If I want to find out this value, this would be 85 and this would be -1 standard deviation, or the Z score would be -1 in this case. So let me explain this again. So if I have a deviation IQ of say 130, okay, what would be my Z score? So my Z score would be 115 plus 15 again, so that would be 130, and that would be +2 for Z score, okay. So we calculate the Z score, we apply the Z score to the formula here, and we get the value of T score. The next is complex behavioral sequence which are species typical behavior are triggered by. Now species typical behavior are triggered by releases in the environment. Learned behavior needs and incentives are not species typical. Species typical means, for example, if the egg comes out of the nest, okay, so the egg is rolling out of the nest, that is a releaser, and the bird tries to roll the egg back to the nest, that is a fixed action pattern, okay, and this fixed action pattern is stimulated or is used as an environmental stimuli, and this is governed by species typical behavior, okay. So the correct answer would be releases in the environment. The next question: which of the following areas of human brain is involved in vision? Now vision is governed by 3 areas. You have the occipital lobe, you have the temporal lobe, and you have the parietal lobe. Now the occipital lobe, the posterior part of the occipital lobe includes the primary visual cortex, and this primary visual cortex is known as the striatal cortex. So striatal cortex is correct. The next is the posterior parietal cortex is part of the association cortex that we have covered when we have understood the various sections of the brain. And finally, pre-striate cortex and inferotemporal cortex are part of the secondary visual cortex. So all four of these are the areas that are involved in human vision. So as you can see here, you have the posterior parietal cortex part of association cortex, you have the pre-striate cortex and the inferotemporal cortex part of the secondary visual cortex, and you have the primary visual cortex or the striata region, and these four regions form the visual, human visual response systems. Okay. The next is, which of the following is not correct regarding semantic memory? Now semantic memory is a part of long-term memory first of all. So whatever would be a part of long-term memory would have chunking. Okay. It would be free from acquisition context and it would be relatively stable in nature because it is part of long-term memory. Now this semantic memory is based on common knowledge. So whatever things you have common knowledge would be a part of the semantic memory and not from your personal experiences. Only interference is here which is common with short-term memory. So that would be the incorrect choice here. So the answer would be B, that is interference. The next question is self-modeling. Self-modeling means I am modeling myself and then I am trying to learn from that. So it is usually conducted by means of videotapes. What exactly is self-modeling? It is a learning where individual watches themselves behaving in a given situation and that behavior is recorded on a kind of videotape or something, and that videotape is shown to the person again, and then based on that he tried to self-model himself. So that is a technique of self-modeling. So the correct answer here is 1. Next question is based on match the correct section. So positive reinforcers like providing chocolates or ice creams on doing good or presenting a reward would be a positive reinforcer. So that would be the correct answer. Then negative reinforcer would be, what I would try to do under negative reinforcer is, I would try to remove the aversive situation. For example, if I am taking a class right now and there is a lot of noise going on, so as a part of negative reinforcer, what I would try to do is, the people who are making noise, I would try to cut down that noise, and that would be a negative reinforcer. Secondary reinforcer, we also call it conditioned reinforcer. It is based on learning. Since it's based on learning, I can call it as acquired satisfier, would be the part of secondary reinforcer. And finally, a punisher is a aversive consequence. So if a child speaks lie, you might scold the child or beat the child. So that would be a kind of punisher, and that is a aversive consequence. So the correct sequence would be punisher related to aversive consequence, then positive reinforcer with presenting rewards, so on. So first would be the correct set here. Now to understand this, I have a diagram here. When we talk about operant conditioning, you have reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement can be of two types, positive and negative. Positive means when you are giving a positive stimulus, or positive reinforcement means when you are treating someone, you are giving chocolates or candies or giving rewards. Negative reinforcement can be of two types, either you escape out or you have an avoidance situation. Escape out means you would remove the stimuli that is affecting you, and in the avoidance you would just ignore that and avoid that and go ahead. Punishment can be of two types. You have positive punishment and negative punishment. Positive punishment, you would add a bad stimuli which is followed by a behavior. So for example, if a child speaks lie, I can slap a child. So I am adding something that is not good for the child. It's a kind of noxious stimulus, and in negative punishment I try to remove that stimuli. So for example, if a child is telling lie, I will tell him to go outside and sit. Okay. So I am not adding something, but I am removing him from the scenario. So that is a kind of negative punishment. Now a summary. So positive reinforces, has a presence of a stimuli. Negative, you have an absence of a stimuli. Reinforcement always increases behavior, punishment always decreases behavior. Escape tries to remove a stimuli and avoidance tries to prevent a stimuli. So these are the basic terms you must know that would help you in solving any problem related to reinforcement and punishment. The next question is, now while traveling in a train, nearby objects move faster in opposite direction as compared to the farther objects, and that is known as motion parallax. It is the effect of depth perception. We would cover this in detail when we talk about the types of perception. Under this, in a summary, I can say motion parallax is a phenomena where the objects that are closer to you appear to move much faster as compared to objects which are far away. So the correct answer here would be motion parallax. Next question is, which of the following is correctly arranged? Now first of all, whenever there is a problem solving situation, what would I try to do? I would try to identify what is the problem. Then I will try to explore the various options to solve that problem. I would have my goal that is decided. To meet that goal, I will have number of alternatives. Those alternatives can be positive, can be addition of something, can be removal of something. I would try to select the best alternative from there. After selecting the best alternative, I will try to implement that alternative to myself or the problem situation, and finally evaluate whether that implementation worked fine or not. So this would be the correct sequence. So we can say identifying, exploring, goal. So identifying, exploring, goal, alternative, select, implement and evaluate. So the correct answer here would be 2. Next question. Now this is an interesting question which is based on classical test theory. Classical test theory is also known as the true score theory. This was given prior to the item response theory or the item response model. Now under CTT, what we say, the classical test theory which is known as CTT, we say observed score is equal to true score plus the error score. That is in absolute terms. Now I am trying to find out the mean of these. Now if I say a child's age is 6.3, I can round it off to 6. If the child's age is 6.7, I can round it off to 7. I won't take age in 6.3, 6.7 format. I would say whether the child is 6 years or 7 years. So I am basically trying to round off. So under this, what I am trying to do, when there is large number of elements, I am trying to reduce the number of errors, and when there is, therefore when there is a large population sample, you have mean of observed scores would be equal to mean of true scores, that is missing in the question here. Okay, so the question says, according to true score model in classical test theory, for population or a large sample, mean observed score would be equal to mean true score. That becomes correct because this error score becomes negligible for a large population, and when this becomes negligible, I can ignore this for mean. So I can say the mean of observed would be equal to mean of true score. So this becomes correct. Now to prove this correct, I can say the error of measurements are assumed to be independently distributed with mean and variance equal to 0. That is again correct. So I can say this reason is the correct explanation for this assertion. Both of them are independently true and reason explains the assertion correctly. The next question is, you have to match the definition with the word. Now there are various terms that have been given under Freud's psychoanalytical theory. One of them is denial. Denial means refusal to do something. So denial means a person's refusal to unpleasant environment in external reality. That is the correct match here. Then for suppression, I can say I am trying to press down my desires. So it's individual's active and conscious attempt to stop anxiety provoking thoughts by simply not thinking about them. So I am not thinking about it and I am trying to suppress my thoughts. So C, the correct match is 4. D, the correct match is 3. So with D you have 3 as the correct match. That is, with C you have D as the correct match. So with C you have 4 as the correct match, and with D you have 3 as the correct match. So the only option here is 3. Now let's see the remaining 2. So libido is a psychic and pleasurable feeling associated with gratification of life instinct, while thanatos is related to death instincts, and human strives to return to an inorganic state of balance that precedes life, in which there is no painful struggle to satisfy a biological need, that is known as thanatos or death instincts. So you have eros, which are known as life instincts, versus thanatos, which are known as death instincts. So that was under the Freud's classification. So this would be libido would match with this and thanatos would match with this. So the correct answer here would be 3. The next question is, you have 2 statements for assertion and reason. Now the first question is, retinal disparity is an important monocular cue in depth perception. Now the first statement itself is incorrect because both convergence and retinal disparity are binocular cues. Whenever we are talking about depth perception, we need coordination from both the eyes, and therefore these fall under binocular cue in depth perception, and they are basically the 2 most common are convergence and retinal disparity. So the first statement holds incorrect. The next is, convergence is a muscular cue in depth perception. That is correct because that talks about use of muscle. It's not monocular. A lot of students confuse it with monocular and thought both A and R should be incorrect. But it's important to read the words carefully. It is muscular, not monocular. So R would be correct and A would be incorrect. So the correct answer would be 4. Assertion is false but reason is true. The next is, the Shatter-Singer's theory talks about emotions. Under this theory, they talk about 2 things that affect emotions. First is the psychological arousal, the physiological arousal, and the cognitive arousal. So the correct answer here would be both A and B, that is a physiological arousal and cognitive arousal. And here is how we understand the Shatter-Singer's theory. You have a stimulus, you have a perception. That perception, you can say it is either stimulus or context. This stimulus would fall under the automatic response, the autonomic arousal, and the context would fall under a particular emotion that is experienced, or the cognitive response, and this would be physiological response or physiological behavior. And this physiological will later on propound the emotional experience, and finally it would give feedback to the perception. So there are various theories on emotion. One of these is the Shatter-Singer theory. The next is Spearman's G factor. Now the general intelligence or the common mental ability, what he said, was the basic thing that Spearman propounded. So Spearman gave his theory either as G intelligence or S intelligence. G means general, S means specific. So when he tried to explain the general intelligence quotient, he tried to find out correlation between the various elements, and he said the correlation is positive among all the variables or all the factors that he has taken, and therefore whenever there is a correlation which is positive, it is known as positive manifold, and there has been intercorrelation in case of Spearman's G intelligence. So what he did was, he tried to correlate the various elements here. So you have the classics, French, English, maths, pitch and music that he tried to correlate, and he explained that as we go down either in the column or go across the row, the correlation tends to decrease, and then finally you have the column which mentions the G or the general intelligence. Now he tried to explain that correlation between 1 and 2, for example, multiplied by correlation of element 3 and 4 would stand equal to correlation between 1 and 3 multiplied by the correlation between 2 and 4. So if I have 4 tests, say test 1, test 2, test 3 and test 4, he explained that I have a correlation between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and this correlation would be equal to a correlation between 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. So that was his basics, and this was known as what was known as the tetrad difference equation that was given by Spearman. Now he tried to elaborate this equation further. So while understanding this, he said that a correlation between test 1 and 2 would be equal to the correlation of 1 with the general intelligence and correlation of item 2 or test 2 with the general intelligence. Since this general intelligence is a common intelligence propounded across the whole of the test, so I can say first test multiplied the correlation between the first test and the general intelligence, and the correlation between the second test and the general intelligence would be equal to the correlation of the first and the second test. So based on this, he tried to apply this to all this equation, and he said instead of correlation between test 1 and 2, he said correlation of 1 with G and 2 with G multiplied with correlation of 3 with general intelligence and 4 with general intelligence would be equal to correlation of 1 with general intelligence and 3 with general intelligence multiplied by 2 with general intelligence and 4 with general intelligence. So I can explain this as this, and this was the tetrad equation that was propounded by him. So Spearman's inferred general intelligence talked about positive manifold or the positive correlation, as you could see in the table that we had seen, which was given by Spearman, and tetrad differences in the equation. So these two hold correct. So the correct answer would be both A and B are correct. So this would be the correct answer. The next is the final question that we would be discussing today talks about the parasympathetic nervous system. Now parasympathetic nervous system, as we know, talk about subconscious control of the visceral organs or the visceral functions. So when I say it's a subconscious control of the visceral functions, that means it is a part of autonomic nervous system. So this parasympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nerves project from the brain and the sacral region of the spinal cord. Okay, and the correct answer here would be 2, and the most important thing here is this parasympathetic nervous system is divided into preganglionic and postganglionic, and for both of these you have the origin point as brain and sacral region of the spinal cord and terminating to the target area. So the correct answer here would be 2. With this we covered the first set of 25 questions for the CBSE June 2015 psychology paper. We would be covering the next set of 25 questions in the subsequent class. You can subscribe to Exam Race channel for further updates. Till then, have a good day.